to share with you the use of scientific and indigenous knowledge, indigenous climate information in the farmer field schools. Next slide. What I want to say is that this information is coming from an initiative of a project in Kenya, in one of the counties that is marginal, and it was looking at the use of farmer field school and climate information and how this intermarry to enhance production. So why climate information and climate services in FFS? The reason they enhance the FFS group understanding of the basic science of weather, climate variability and change and its implication on the FFS enterprises. It also enhances the FFS group understanding on access, interpretation, and application of climate information and knowledge. And also it creates the linkage between the FFS group and the providers of scientific and indigenous climate information and knowledge for adaptation, resilience, and disaster risk reduction in agropastoral production. In essence, it brings together all the players, the extension workers, the meteorology people, and all the people who are involved with agriculture and climate information. Next slide. It is very, very important that the farmer field school master trainers and facilitators are trained in climate information. And this climate information is undertaken in the 3 FFS phases: the preparation phase, FFS activities on climate information. There is the implementation phase where we have also the FFS activities on climate information during implementation, and the post-FFS evaluation phase on climate information and what is done. In all these 3 phases, you'll find there are certain activities that are being undertaken. Next slide. So what are the preparation phase FFS activities on climate information? First of all, these are undertaken using the participatory tools, and these activities are undertaken before the beginning of the season. I have to emphasize that. And they enable the FFS group to identify climate challenges and problems regarding agricultural production. They also enable the FFS group to analyze the scientific, traditional weather and climate characteristics and change patterns over time, as well as the climatic hazards, risks, and impacts on agricultural enterprises. This also enables the FFS group to identify crop and livestock enterprise trial options based on scientific forecast and also the traditional weather and climate information. And lastly, it enables the FFS group to develop a season or the cycle-long learning curriculum and the overall budget of the whole enterprise based on the kind of trial options they are going to undertake during the learning season. Next slide. The summary of these activities are: identify the local climatic hazards, the climatic risks, and their impact on agricultural enterprises. Analyze the scientific and traditional historical climate patterns over time and weather and climate focus information for strategic decisions. You also identify the community enterprise choices based on historical climate information, historical scientific climate information, and traditional climate information and the experiences they have had for tactful decisions. And also to generate what we call the crop and livestock enterprise options based on the climate information that they have analyzed and they have come up with. Next slide. Now, this slide, I'm just trying to show you a weekly scientific weather forecast, which is scientific in one of the places in the county in Kenya. And you can see this is basically the weekly scientific forecast, what it talks about. This one is presented in printed form, but it is also undertaken through the radio or media services, with the radio being the most popular. But they also have some small publications which they send to people who are having the advanced phones, or they can send to the nearest local agricultural extension office. But generally, this one is just showing the weekly forecast and what to expect. But generally, the preparatory phase mostly relies on what we call the seasonal forecast, which looks at a period of about 3 months. Next slide. I've also tried to give a traditional weather forecast here. And when you look at it, you'll see the traditional weather indicators, because they vary from place to place. But like you can see, some of the indicators are due after a long dry spell, clouds at 5 a.m., lightning in the west, flowering of plants, greening of leaves in some tree species, animals and ants behaviors, migrations of animals, when the moon disappears, and many others. And we are trying to look at, when you have these indicators, what do they mean? And once they are seen, how long does it take to rain? But then there are some questions that you have to ask yourself, whether these indicators have been seen or they have not been seen. But what I want to mention here is that we don't only use, we also use the traditional experts who are known. They are there within the community, and they can be able to tell us, and also the experience of the farmers over time. They know some of these things. So they will try to look at this traditional information, compare it with the scientific information, and know how to make the decisions based on the two and their long-term experience. Next slide. I want to just show, for example, in FFS, once you have in the preparatory phase, you have to prepare yourself based on the climate information that you've had. You've got to start preparing. You have got to know the kind of adaptation options that you are going to undertake. And here I'm just giving an example of a climate smart agricultural enterprise option based on below normal rainfall. You heard our colleague talking about below normal, which means the rainfall will not be very good. So what kind of options are you going to do? I have mentioned them here. In livestock, you can see what you do. In crop management, I have mentioned some of the things that we can do in soil and water management and agroforestry. But to look at the pictures there, I just want to show you, like, in places where there is very, very little water, people can grow vegetables on sack mounds. The second picture is for traditional vegetables. That was in an FFS. And the third picture is some of the drought resistant crops. I don't want to go into all these others, but I am hoping that you can see, and the slide will be shared for you to be able to see the examples of enterprise options based on below normal rainfall forecast. But the pictures are very clear on the kind of crops which are drought resistant. Next. Now, this is just to show what a trial option looks like based on the FFS way. And here I'm just giving an example, the learning objective, performance of drought resistant maize variety and the different conservation agriculture regimes based on the climate forecast. So you can see here, you can see a control group on maize and a normal tillage. Then there is the treatment 1, maize and a minimum tillage, treatment 2, maize and a minimum tillage, and maize and a which is and a minimum tillage and mulch. So, and then the uniform situation, the requirements, and the parameters that we are going to look at. And I want you to look at the parameters. We are making sure that we look at the weather, especially the weekly forecasts and the seasonal forecasts, as well as other parameters that come in the FFS, like pests and diseases. Next. So after that, you have developed that trial option on the FFS. Then you develop the learning curriculum, and it is based on the adaptation option design. And the curriculum includes all the activities to be undertaken on a weekly basis by the FFS group. In crops, it may include land preparation, planting, and weekly observation of the growth of the crops. And in livestock, it may involve construction of the chicken house and brooders, acquisition of the day-old chicks, vaccination, and weekly observation of birth rate of the chicks. And as you can see, we are just giving a drawing, a schematic drawing of showing, the weekly activity schedule, on the learning curriculum. Like week 1, what is happening, week 2, what is happening, week 3 in crops, and in chicken, week 1, week 2, week 3. Next. Now we come to the implementation phase. The implementation phase is actually the phase whereby the FFS groups implement the enterprise of choice that is based on the forecast that they have been told. And one of the main tools that they use on the FFS groups is the ISA. It's very, very important to the ISA because the ISA has got quite a lot of parameters which the FFS fraternity knows. But here I'm trying to keep it such that for people to see that the ISA has to look at climate issues. That's why you are seeing this ISA has all those climate issues to make sure that the FFS group does not forget. My colleague in the last presentation, they talked about the use of the rain gauge. Yeah, it can be used in some of the FFS groups, although the experience with Accra was not very good because the rain gauges were not very, 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 very good. So here is the implementation, and the FFS group does the weekly hands-on learning activities, monitoring the enterprises, the trial options guided by the weather forecasts and the ISA sheets, and the climate as it is on that day. And also the FFS group practices on the use of agrometeorological instruments and sharpens their skills in monitoring weather. And at this time, they also gain knowledge through what we call special topics on weather and climate. And lastly, it is during this implementation phase that the FFS group makes informed decisions on the enterprise based on the weather prediction and the weather situation at that particular time. Next slide. I think it's just 2 to go. So this is the last slide. We have said in that other slide is the implementation, what happens during the implementation and how the FFS groups makes decisions. And the learning curriculum in FFS varies depending on the enterprise. There are enterprises that can go for 20 weeks. There are enterprises that can go for 32 weeks, 52 weeks. So you can see how long it takes. And each week you are meeting, you have got to get the weather information and you have got to make decisions based on the weather, both traditional and scientific. Now, the post-evaluation phase activities on climate information. Here, the FFS groups evaluates the climate factors affecting the enterprise option. How did those enterprises perform based on climate information? And also the FFS group feeds back to the meteorology department, the agriculture department on the weather forecasts based on the relevance of the forecast, their accuracy, and also their skills on use of some of the weather instruments. But also, they also try also to balance also the accuracy also on the traditional weather forecasting. The FFS groups also evaluates the enterprise trial options performance based on the climate information. Based on the information that was given, did we make the right option, the right adaptation option, and how did it perform? And it also sharpens the FFS group decision making on enterprise based on focus and enterprise performance. Lastly, the FFS groups gathers lessons on climate information and how this, can we just go back a bit? And how these are important for improving future farming initiatives. And that is all my presentation. I say thank you very much. We'll be ready to receive your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul, for your presentation.